And our first business is to approve the minutes of July 23rd.
So moved.
Seconded.
So, has everybody had a chance to read them? Okay, whenever we're ready, we can have discussion about the approval of the minutes.
I guess I should mention that under the discussion, laptop for select board chair, which is old business, number 9C, or new business, sorry, number 9C. I did bring up the tablet for the road crew, which is part of a discussion we'll have later tonight. So I did want to bring up that was part of that discussion, and that's why we brought the numbers for that tonight.
Okay, any other discussion? Shall we vote to approve them with that correction? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then we are moving on to additions and deletions. We have an addition which is planned for the old grader, and we put it under old business down below. Then the members of the public, we have 2 and we welcome you. Correspondence, we have none. Warrants, we have the warrants there, and I can read them since Kate is not here. Number 1, we have 3 weeks, so we have a lot of different.
Motion to approve.
Before I read them,
I make a motion to approve the warrants.
Okay, a second.
I think you read them.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, number 1, payroll from 7/28, $13,411.55. From 7/28 payroll taxes, $6,250.05. Then from 8/11 payroll, we have $17,267.02. And then from 8/11, we have, it must be the payroll taxes, even though it's not written, for $6,900.35. Then we have 2 general funds, $16,299.93 and $195.76. Then we have highway, $12,162.69. Highway equipment, $13,150.15. And then the final Stone Arch Bridge payment, $46,698.88 for a total of $132,340.38.
A second.
Okay, discussion? I had a question, Sherwood. Could you go over, you said very succinctly last meeting or the meeting before what the town fire department monies pay and what your checking account pays. Could you repeat that, please?
The town fire department funds are for the upkeep of the trucks and the fire station, which belong to the town. They both belong to the town. What the Fire Department Association pays for is generally what's on the back of the firefighter. There have been times in the past where, like, we were required to have air tanks, and they needed to purchase like 7 of them. Well, those things are $7,000 to $8,000 a piece. So the board and the fire department agreed to split it. That's the only one I can think of. But there are, well, no, there was one 2 years ago where the truck, the engine 4, went through this testing, and the person that did the testing said that there was a problem with either cavitation in the drive shaft or something. Anyways, it was a $16,000 bill. It was a necessity because everything there is old. So the town took money out of some surplus, I can't remember where it was, to make sure that that got done before the thing fell apart. And that would have, if it either got done then, or the cost when it did drop would have been over $60,000.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I knew you said it and I didn't write it down, so I wanted clarification. Any other discussion? All right, shall we vote on it? All those in favor of accepting the warrants?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, then we go on to highway report.
A few things I can discuss. Stone Arch Bridge, I was up there on yesterday, actually. They're moving right along. As far as time-wise, what Brian had figured it was gonna take, they're right on schedule, but because he's had some sick crew members, he's about a week and a half behind as far as the timeline goes, and a few other setbacks, he had a breakdown. But other than that, it's looking great so far. We're right in the middle of our grant project on Brookline Road, about a third of the way done. That's moving along pretty smoothly. I am happy to report that we have had no damage from the previous storms, other than a few trees down here and there. And that's all I got. Any questions?
So for the Stone Arch Bridge, about a week behind schedule, what is that going to do for like the school bus routes and stuff?
As far as the reopening date, he thinks he'll be able to reopen the bridge for traffic, but it just won't be completed.
Okay. Cool.
And then we have disposal of old tires at the garage and gravel pit trees. Do you
Yep,
want
that's,
us to?
we have a surplus of old tires that when got changed out, didn't get recycled.
Mhm.
I'm assuming because they wanted to save money somewhere.
Are any of those ones that can go on the old grader?
There's a few I can pick out.
Okay.
Ones, I mean, if it's just gonna go, depending on what we do with it, the grader itself, where it goes, what happens. I mean, if we do decide to sell it, then the tires are gonna be a selling point on the machine. Because nobody's gonna wanna buy a machine with ball tires and possibly have to do a motor job in it, so.
Well, or you could look at it that if it's really not a great machine, new tires will matter.
Right.
And they might be better saved for our grader if they're $15,000 tires and it costs us $500 to change them out. So what I'm thinking is get rid of all the tires except the 2 that you might use for that. And then
It
how,
says 6 tires.
yeah,
6.
and how would you suggest we do that?
Get rid of tires?
Mhm.
Well, I did give a list of tires to Pete's Tire Barn. They were supposed to give me a price on getting rid of them.
Okay.
You mean they're gonna charge you to get rid of them?
Yep.
Didn't somebody say that they wanted tires, Liza or somebody, said that
I
they
mean,
take tires?
If there's residents that want them for anything, they're more than happy to come and get them.
Maybe front porch forum, on front porch forum, save us
We
some
could
money.
do that.
If you give Elaine the information, she'll put it on, like what size they are and stuff.
Oh, I have multiple sizes, so.
Mhm.
You need to make sure that in that statement, these are things that won't pass inspection.
Mhm.
Because we don't want to take on the liability, somebody's got some free tires and they try and use them. And we haven't told them.
Yeah, we can say that and say they're good for like landscaping projects
Yeah.
or something.
As a matter of
People use
fact,
them for that.
you should have a document that they sign when they pick it up to understand they're not serviceable tires. One less lawsuit we need.
And gravel pit
The
trees?
gravel pit trees, we need to, before we can crush again, we need to have somebody come in and clear cut and stump. So we need to think about how we're gonna go about that.
You and I had a discussion that somebody hopefully could come in and do it for trees. What kind of trees are there?
I don't think there's a lot of firewood,
Mhm.
probably a lot of pulpwood, no marketable timber, I would think, maybe a little bit, but not enough to make it.
You mean to make dimensional lumber or
Right.
something out of it?
Maybe some hemlock if somebody wanted to rough saw it or something, but there's some pine, but I don't think there's, I think a lot of it got damaged during Irene, when East Hill washed out, it buried a lot of roots, so there's a lot of rotten and dead trees up on that end. But, I mean, you can ask around some of the local tree cutters, see if they wanna do it for the wood, and then we'll just have to hire somebody to stump it.
Can we put it out to bid for a barter type situation? You know, like say.
Well,
this
we
one-
can write up the RFP for whatever,
Yeah.
see who bites. In my experience with contractors, if there's no money involved, they're not gonna wanna do it.
Yeah, well.
And then there's a liability issue. I mean, we gotta have people in there that have insurance. So, I
might put that on the forum as well, because there are a lot of people cutting firewood, and if there's a manageable amount of firewood, they might come in and do it for a little or nothing. I mean, I'm thinking of the guy up in West Townsend.
Sam,
Garfield, Sam Garfield.
Yeah,
Sam,
and, yeah, Sam. Rob Wright, he's always doing firewood. Can't think of anybody else off the top of my head.
oh, so I can start asking around, see who's interested and who's not. I just know that, people that got heavy equipment to come in there and do it quickly, that stuff costs a lot of money to operate every day, and they need to make sure they're gonna at least recoup their expenses.
When do you need to start crushing?
Today. Or crushing?
Well, when do you need it ready for you?
Well, I mean, ideally, I should have it ready by spring.
Okay.
So you got some time.
Right.
I might, like I said, that might not be a bad idea for another post on the forum. You never know who would fight.
I've heard firewood's at a premium this year, so there's a lot of people out there that would bite.
Could be.
Okay, should we move the plan for the old grader up now that we have Jeremy's attention in case he doesn't want to
certainly
stay
can.
for the whole meeting? So it's been sitting up there, people are asking, what are we doing with it? And what do you,
Well, I mean, we need to post it, basically, put it out to bid. So we need to, I'll take some pictures, and then, we can sit down and write up a description, and then figure out where and how we wanna post it. There's Facebook Marketplace, I can post it on the, VLR website. A lot of towns post their used equipment on that site. There's
we have
a-
the Townshend family site that a lot of people
Well, we can put it on
use.
any of those forums.
Yeah.
You know, there's an online site called Municipid I can look into.
Okay,
I don't know if that'll cost us anything or if they want a commission. So there's options. But we just,
so we have 3 posts, we have getting rid of the tires, we have cutting the trees, and disposing of the grader. And you need to tell us how many tires there are.
I have an inventory at the garage.
Okay, and like maybe acreage of the trees, like some descriptive that you could put in, and then some detail on the grader. Okay,
Question, who reviewed the grader?
Who reviewed it
Yeah,
or looked at
who
it?
gave you the,
death
that it
sentence.
wasn't fixable?
The United Ag and Turf,
Okay,
um,
have we got a
Road
written,
Tech.
have we got a written anything? We need that, because there are enough people in town really aggravated about that grader, especially sitting up on top of that hill. I can't tell you how many times I've heard about it. So we need to have something in writing.
I don't know if they'll do that for free, that's the problem.
Well, even if it costs us a little bit, we
I
need
mean,
to do that.
they're gonna tell me that, no, you gotta ship it up here, we'll tear it apart, tell you what it needs. That could get very pricey.
Well, why don't
There's
you
a
get,
reason they're not giving us any money in trade.
why
Yeah,
don't you get the last bill for their work to us, and maybe we can make some sense out of it.
is there a heavy mechanic, a heavy, equipment mechanic in town?
What about the guy right down there?
Yeah.
Kurt?
Kitty Pie.
Or-
Nice room,
Nice.
Nice too. Can ask them to take a look at it.
yeah.
Yeah, if he can give you something in writing that tells you, you know, how bad off it is, because the biggest thing is nobody, in the complaints I've heard,
Yeah.
nobody has seen, has actually torn into it and given a diagnosis. And they've said to me, yes, it's old, they understand that, but is it too old, rather than spending whatever we spent for that thing,
Mhm.
our spending for the one that we got replaced? It's just, it's make people happy as best you can. So, yeah, Nystrom, I mean, everybody knows who he is.
But I get what you're saying,
That's
but how much is, you know, how
But
much
how
do
much
we
are
wanna
we-
spend? There was a reason we brought that up about how much, you know, we wanted to spend digging into this problem. At what point is enough enough?
Yeah, I understand, I do, but this is to the point where if this isn't nipped right now, we're gonna hear about it in a big way at town meeting, and you may not get your funds to go into the next year. I mean, that's what they're saying. So, and there is a rather large contingent of people here. I've even heard lawsuit, so, because the town didn't have the right to go past what what was voted on town meeting, and, you know, keeping that thing as are those things as an added to the budget every year, their idea is that that's not what we were in it for. Now, you and I both know that those pieces of equipment are gonna cost far more than $200,000. And we're gonna have those things, paying for those things for the next 6 or 7 years. But if the people at town meeting don't buy it because they think you should have done the other thing, I mean, there's your money right there. It's either the $200,000 that you're gonna need next year, or, spend $1,500, $2,000 to have it properly evaluated. Somebody that knows what they're doing.
I think your $1,500 to $2,000 evaluated is a shot in the dark, to be honest with you.
Well, why don't you ask, Colin?
I can ask
How
him.
much?
He's gonna wanna tear into it though. That's the thing. Nobody's gonna know until they break the motor down to tell me how much it's gonna cost. And that's not free. They're not gonna do that for free. Nobody's gonna do that for free.
Well, and that's
So,
what scared
But
us.
I'll ask people all
No, but
day
I
long.
mean, that's what scared us last time, and that's why we made this decision. Because we were pretty sure we were gonna tear into it and find bad news, and we were throwing good money after bad.
My recollection is that we had an estimate for about 50,000 just to get it up and running, right, and functional.
With no guarantees.
That was before it broke down, right? The 50,000 and the select
No,
board.
that was on the backhoe.
Oh, that was on the backhoe, sorry.
We never went into that with the grader because we had already gone through that with the backhoe and we're like, well, for another $100, why not just buy a new machine?
Yep.
We're talking about a 23-year-old machine. At some point,
I think the biggest thing we need here is just somebody that has some skill that people will agree with or understand where it's coming from, to say, it's no good. Yeah. Personally, I think the information that you've given on that equipment has been good. Now, we started talking about this back when you first took the job. But we need some written documentation somewhere to just say,
Connie would like the floor.
So if we are going down and getting a second opinion or a full evaluation, does the select board need to vote on how much money you're willing to spend on that
I would say yes.
prior to actually doing the work?
Yes.
Are you willing to spend only 2,000 or are we willing to spend
Well,
10,000?
I think what we need to do is see what this guy, what do they call him? If we're talking to him, see what he has to say first, and then bring it back, and the board can decide how much money they're willing to put into it. I mean, if it's gonna cost us $50,000 or $60,000,
Well, no, I'm asking about the cost of getting the
you
evaluation.
know, that's what I'm saying too. If tearing it all apart and putting it back together is gonna cost an astronomical amount of money.
More
well,
than it's worth.
Then more than it's worth, to do more than it's worth. But then you have something in writing that you can put down and say, this is where the problem.
This is why we
Okay,
did
so
this.
that's not my question. My question is, so we're going to ask Colin for how much it would be to do a detailed evaluation. Then we bring that estimate cost, not the actual evaluation, but the estimate on the evaluation cost, back to the select board, and then the select board decides whether or not to do it.
Correct.
Okay.
How are we getting it off that hill? In the
we're gonna
meantime?
drive it off the hill.
You are,
The reason I have
With your
it
fingers crossed?
with my fingers crossed, that's why we haven't moved it yet.
okay.
Because we could get it 200 feet down the road and the motor could give out.
Yeah.
And then we have to pay somebody to come release brakes and tow it or whatnot, or have it trucked.
I remember this part of the conversation where we were trying to decide, do you bring it down and then bring it somewhere else, or do you bring it to its destination directly from the hill? We talked about that a lot.
What about the trailer?
But that's
Yeah,
definitely a
don't we have a
decision we
trailer
have
with-
to make.
a trailer?
It would fit on.
No, we don't have a trailer. We have a trailer for smaller equipment. We don't have a trailer that size. I mean, you're talking about a machine that's 30 feet long.
Yeah, it's big.
What would be the plan if you did start to drive it down and it didn't continue its journey? What would happen?
I call United Ag and Turf, they come down, they release the brakes so we can move it, and we'll tow it somewhere.
Okay.
To the pit, back to the garage, at, $190 an hour is what the road service guys cost.
So it sounds to me like we have to get an idea of how much it's gonna cost to get it evaluated by Nystrom, right?
If he's willing,
If
yeah.
he's willing to do it, and then
On the
we need
25th.
to decide if you're just gonna not even try to drive it and have those people go get it for you and bring it over there? Does that sound?
It would make more
I
sense
mean,
if
I
we're
don't
gonna,
think you should drive it if you think it's very dangerous. I think we should pay the money to get it moved. if we know where we're moving it to.
Right, well, that's the thing.
I mean, I don't wanna move it to the garage and then move it somewhere else if we don't have to, but I don't think you should drive it, I think we should have it moved when we know where it's gonna go. That's my opinion.
We also should think of who's gonna do the evaluation. They're not gonna wanna do it in the weeds up on top of that hill. So,
Well,
what are you
that's-
saying, Pitt? Probably the best place.
I think it's gonna take
They're
more
gonna
than
need
an hour to
anything
get
for
it from there to
electricity.
wherever. I mean, how long do you think it's gonna take to
Well,
tow
it'll
it?
only take 20 minutes to get it,
So,
but we don't know if it's got 20 minutes of life in it.
no.
No, how long does it take to tow it,
Oh,
he's saying?
well, you're still looking probably at
An hour at
three
least.
to $500 for somebody to truck it.
Really? You think it's gonna
It's
take
an
more
hour
than an
minimum
hour?
at least.
Oh,
And they're not gonna do it for just that hour.
And I think that Colin might need electricity, wouldn't you think so? So I think the
Yes and no.
garage would be the place for it. Because the pit,
Put it in a scrap metal pile.
Listen, I mean, I've had this conversation with my father, who's been in this business a long time. He's like, they didn't give you no money in trade-in for a reason. So
Yeah.
take the tires off it, send it to whoever wants to deal with it, and be done with it. So,
Well, we gotta get it off the hill.
yeah.
And I don't think you should drive it, in my opinion. I think that if Colin says yes, he says yes, and we get it brought over there, and if we can't find, what's our time frame? Because I think we need to prioritize getting it off the hill, because I think that's one of the agitations that Sherwood's talking about. I was part of the conversation where we were like,
It's
should we
sitting
move
there
it,
to
should
save
we
the
not?
town money. That's what it's all
No,
about.
I agree with that, and we did talk about that when we were discussing all the stuff. But I think that right now, step one, we gotta get it off the hill. We gotta, if we can bring it directly to who's gonna fix it, that would be great. Do you think there's more than just one person that might be
Well, it's
cool with,
Colin,
or
is
not
it?
fix it, but look at it?
I mean, I can call United and see what they say.
Yeah,
I mean,
to
the John
dig into
Deere
it. Yeah.
dealership.
So
They may
maybe,
do something. I mean, their tech's already looked at it for the most part, he's done it. So they may be able to write something up for me. I won't have to ask them.
yeah, so if you were able to call those people, then maybe we could say reasonably within a week it would be off that hill and on its way to
Well,
get looked at.
should we make a motion now or wait till the 27th when we have information? It's where I thought we were headed.
Yeah, we don't have enough details.
Right,
for-
so I think we need to wait till the next meeting with details to make a decision. And any townspeople that says, why is it still there? We're working on it. We're trying to decide where to bring it.
Sounds reasonable.
I personally think it should go to the garage. Colin doesn't, if it's Colin, he doesn't have a lot of room there. You know, the
And we
garage,
don't want-
Colin may say no, he
Yeah,
don't
he
want
might.
nothing to do with it.
he might.
I mean, to get a real evaluation, it should be done by a John Deere professional.
And before the next meeting, maybe you could give us a price what we would get for it for scrap. Because maybe we're spending,
I have no idea.
I know, but
It's gotta be worth something.
Well, we could say that we would like to find out how much it would cost to get it looked at and who the possible people that might wanna dig into it for us are, and a price for scrap before the next select board meeting. Is that reasonable, Jeremy? Is that enough time to get that information together?
Yeah.
Okay.
what about offering it for sale as is? I mean,
That's,
there might be
that's
people willing
what I
to
thought
put,
we were gonna do.
That's kinda what I thought we were going to do as well.
Offer to what?
As is.
For sale as is.
You can still do that. Especially if you get something in writing that says there's just no fixing it. You know. That's all that people are gonna wanna
see,
know.
this
Did you
conversation,
try? Did you check into it? And, this is what they said.
Yeah.
Can't get any better than that.
this conversation changed from selling it from where it was because Sherwood rightly thought that we should have a kind of a temperature taking of the situation that somebody would be getting themselves into, and that we honestly presented. So,
Well, I don't want to pay off lawsuits from people in town that are complaining and have threatened. And then you got to think about it another way, is if there's a complaint there, there's a complaint to the Attorney General's office and Secretary of State's office. And that's going to be one of those things, pay me now or pay me later. If you can quell that kind of aggravation that the town feels, you know, it may be worth spending a little extra money to just get rid of it with that piece of paper. You know, that piece of paper that tells us it just isn't worth fixing. I mean, I imagine everything from big parts to little parts are going to be a problem with a piece of equipment that's that old. But somebody needs to tell us that.
It's not just the engine thing.
No, it's not.
It needs brakes, it needs, you know, who knows what the transmission's like. It's already had one transmission put in
We
it,
just have, right?
so.
Yeah, I think that would be the goal. Get an evaluation that we just can't afford to fix it, and then put it up for sale to whoever wants the thing.
So who would like to compose a motion to direct Jeremy to do that?
What do you mean?
To contact someone to find out the details about the health of the machine.
Well, I can do it. I
Okay.
think I said all of it.
Right, but Connie wants to write it down.
Reader's Digest, make a motion to direct the highway foreman to get a price tag for a professional to look into the problems with the grader. I think that's as far as we want to go right now.
Okay. Second,
Seconded.
all those in favor?
Oh, I wanted to ask.
Okay,
Sherwood, would you consider amending your motion to add in that we would also like Jeremy to get a price for scrap if possible?
Sure.
okay,
Just gotta have a second.
Second.
okay, so any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so now we have the treasurer report. Connie has been working on getting the NIMRIC figures to jive so we can understand them. And if there's any questions, let us know. Okay, then we'll move along to the treasurer's report for the 2-month period. The last in July, she brought in $1,524 even.
You mean the
Clerk.
town clerk?
Yeah, I do mean that. Any questions there, folks? Okay. Then we'll move along to the chair. PACIF claim cost reports came in. They're very detailed and kind of hard to understand, but they're all there for your perusal.
What is PACIF? What is that?
I have-
PACIF.
I have an extra one right
It's the
here.
insurance
No, but I mean,
provider.
just what is it?
It's all our insurance for town.
Oh, okay, I know.
And, but like if a highway guy in the past, a couple of years ago, had an accident, it's all right in here, if you wanna look at it, Laura. So, and then we have, yep. Then we have the VLCT training. And, this is on ordinances, And who would like to attend? It's in person, and it's $28 a head, so.
Problem with this is once you go down that avenue, who's gonna come and enforce it? Because we haven't got law enforcement here. And law enforcement from the state or the county is not gonna enforce local ordinances. So this is more for a city that has their own police force or building inspector, whatever, and it's a waste of $28. Especially since it's not just $28, you're gonna have to pay travel on top of that.
Right.
So, I mean, we're not gonna be able to use it. We've got a few ordinances that are just kind of because we had to at the time, but it really isn't worth it.
So maybe if we get bigger in the future, we'll revisit
Yeah.
it.
We get that $100 million budget a year that we don't have to pay the school with. It's all just ours, maybe we'd want to do that.
Okay, and then the next one is budget projects monthly updates. How's everybody doing with your chosen jobs? I don't have the list right here. I know Sherwood's IT. Yeah.
I have made no progress on healthcare.
Okay.
Ditto. I'm the dam and
The dam?
dam and the energy.
Okay.
As far as, IT and cyber problems and issues. Working on a couple of different options for policies. There are a few out there. The only thing I really need to do is I need to talk to our insurance coverage people at the league to find out what the offering cost is for covering cyber attacks. And you know, what they will cover and what their minimum requirements are. Because the minimum requirements is what cost us $1,700 a couple of years ago, because we didn't have anything in place when we got hit with a phishing. One other thing I'll say about that is we need to think more, not what we used to do, but what's coming. Because, you know, if we stick our head in the sand and don't move to combat some of this stuff, it's gonna cost us a ton of money. And since we have a hospital here, we have the high school here, the town is also gonna be in those crosshairs. I've done the Peterborough, New Hampshire $2 million thing, but I was talking to our IT provider a week ago, and he said that small towns and just over the border in Massachusetts have been hit with, and I know he told me the name of it, but I can't remember, a fishing expedition that cost them a substantial sum of money. So if that happened to us, we don't have any coverage. So.
Okay, and are you finished, Sherwood?
What's that? Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm fine.
I had trash and the mowing at the hospital areas over there. The hospital I met with them, with Rick and Kate and myself, and they agreed to mow their portion. They've only agreed in word so far by the maintenance man coming to Alenka and saying, I'm gonna start mowing. And, you know, to me, I thought, well, that's not enough, I should talk to the board about it. And my thought was to let them go and inspect what they did, say that's good, or you should do a little more, you know, kind of get a meeting of the minds, and then ask them to put it in writing in a letter at least that we could file so that we had record, rather than just us going and having a conversation and them telling us that we would do it, so I don't know what the board feels with that. My other one is trash, that I will be ready to report on next meeting. I've gotten far, but there's a lot, and I hooked up with this guy from Wyndham County Solid Waste who's willing to come to a board meeting, and he seems very knowledgeable, like what other towns have done and why, and the way things are going for the future, and he knows a lot about our town and where we're antiquated and where we're doing well. So it was kind of enlightening to talk to him, and I wouldn't mind scheduling a visit with him eventually for the select board.
Have you talked to Irv?
I have.
Okay.
I have, and if we invite that man to a meeting, I would of course invite Irv, so that, because he's our guy.
He's pretty knowledgeable about all of these things, and
He's very knowledgeable, and the man said that he's very, he's their historian for the whole Wyndham County Solid
that
Waste,
doesn't
because
surprise me.
he knows everything about the past, and he needs to be prodded a little with the innovative ideas. And I said, okay, well, we can prod him. If we need to, maybe we're doing fine with the antiquated ways. So that's my report. Okay, and the one that is the Boy Scouts again. They had a wrong date. Was that what happened, Tommy?
They had a wrong date, and I was directed to go and confirm that it was the 22nd of September, and it turns out that all of that was the wrong date. So we asked them to fill out a new form.
Okay.
So it's a new
So we're sort of
application.
starting from scratch. And what I would like to do, to mention, is that, like with the Pickle Festival the other day, there were carts parked all over the lawn, and it had rained the day before, so it made divots, and we have on here, but I think we need to reiterate with people, no vehicles on the common. If they want to set up a food vehicle, they can put it in the road by the school, and then the people can stand on the grass, but the vehicles in the road, sort of. It's a thought, but, if we keep allowing people to drive on the common, we're gonna keep going backwards with the grass and everything else. So.
May I say something? When the day before the Pickle Festival, in the rain, there was a car with a heavy trailer out on the grass. And then the morning of the Pickle Festival, we went by at about 10:30 or so. There were 5 cars out on the grass. When we went back through town on our way back home, there were 2 cars still out there parked under a tree so they could be in the shade. So the whole thing about not driving on the common was completely ignored the entire time, and it's like,
Maybe what we need is some posting of signs around. When there's going to be an event, there's a nice big sign, no vehicles on the common. No excuses. I mean, if you can't get whatever you want from here to there without being a vehicle, go someplace else.
yeah, and
The other thing, even if we're donating the space, we could take a deposit, so
Yes.
that if they do make divots and things like that, that we
That's a
could
good idea.
keep their deposit and repair them.
that should be mandatory for everyone.
Mhm.
That way, if people are going to ignore the policies, then they kiss off this deposit. There's got to be some kind of accountability,
Mhm.
No, I think
especially when they're not even paying anything to use it in the first place.
I think the signage thing, you could pass that cost on to the hospital or the people that run the Pickle Festival or whoever else, and you can make them, as they're part of their setup, put the signs.
Their
on
own
it.
sign, they
No,
generate.
they'd have to get what we tell them that they need to
Mhm.
have, and they put them up, and they take them down. And like the hospital, I mean, they could use those year to year if they're a good quality sign, but just build it in that they have to put these things out.
Was there a problem with the hospital fair day? I didn't see any
No,
cars.
they're
No,
really
no.
good. They do everything from the road.
Yeah,
They do everything from the road. The booths themselves are a little heavy, and you do see imprints, and
That's foot traffic though. That's just dead grass.
Yeah.
It was kind of ironic that the pickle festival was mostly for young people, and they were all driving out there and go down to the historical festival down the road in Newfane with all these older folks, and they're not doing it.
Yeah.
It's like, really? So
That's
that was ironic.
But if we did, you know, I'm not singling out anybody, but everybody that gets use of that common has to do this, or they can't have use of it. So you can't say to the hospital, well, you don't have to do it, and the pickle festival does have to do it. It just doesn't work.
Mhm.
We can tell them what they need to put out and how far apart, or they can pay us to put it out. I'm sure that the highway guys would like a couple hours of overtime to drive signs into the ground the night before.
I think this can all be put into the policy, because I think when we adopted Kate's policy, we adopted it temporarily, maybe 6 months,
We did,
to see if there was more information that we needed to gather to put into it.
we
So
did.
I think we should try to make note to add the driving on the common, and I do believe she put in deposits, if I remember correctly. We're gonna look at it again.
I'm pretty sure that the existing policy, which is still in place, as far as I know, the pre-existing policy, has that in it.
Yeah,
No
I
driving
think
on
it
the
gets
common.
muddy sometimes. It's not in this case because we didn't waive the fee, but sometimes when we waive the fee, I think maybe the deposit thing goes by the wayside. But I think we could add all of this, no driving on the common, the getting the signs themselves and posting them all into that policy before the next time we vote on it.
Is it in the contract that they sign when they, isn't that in the contract?
I think the contract itself hasn't been updated,
No, it has not.
and that's something that needs to be done.
I have it right here for you, Laura.
It's the same one we've had.
It's the request, I think, that's the
Yeah,
contract.
that's what
Yeah.
you're talking
It's in the
about.
packet.
I'm
Oh, you
looking
should-
for it.
So she doesn't have to work.
She only has the agenda.
There's a packet on the table if you want to see it.
The whole thing needs to be restructured.
Okay, but Connie, you've made notes of the 3 things that we're gonna change there. So let's get back to the,
Well, I have 2 things, deposits and no vehicles.
okay.
Posting that it would be up to the individual to provide signs and post them ahead of their event to specify that there's no cars allowed on the common. Actually, I can make a motion to accept this.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to accept Cub Scout Pack 448, their event on the town common on September 7th, Saturday, September 7th, from 1 to 5 p.m. I'd like to waive the fee, authorize Ally to sign on behalf of the board, and I would like to have them notified ahead of time not to put their cars on the common.
What about a deposit?
Waive the fee, right? Is that separate from the fee?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you waive a rental fee, sometimes there's still a deposit.
Hmm.
So I'm just curious, I mean, we can wait until we adjust the,
I'd like to wait because I don't know the amount of the deposit written in the policy.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me.
okay, so we'll wait on that, So a second to Kate's motion,
Seconded.
and all those, is there any further discussion? Although, now the boys can be on the block.
Did everybody vote?
Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, if I'm correct, we're up to the grant coordinator. Kate, would you like to
We are
speak?
on computers.
Oh, computer.
Oh,
So
I
we're
thought-
all related.
Computer for the select board.
Oh, I thought Sherwood already did that when he did his
No.
job.
No.
Okay. So you have the floor, Sherwood.
Well, we have some funds, and Katie will talk about where they came from. And I think it's a it's a good idea, one that I would highly recommend, that we buy same computers for every member of the board. Now, maybe we look at participation as an issue, and maybe we look at, I don't know what you would want to put in there. But the reasoning for having issued computers is you can control the flow of information in and out. You don't want to have on town business private owned machines. And I mean, right down to you're using your laptop to write a memo or a letter. I've done that for 4 years, but we haven't had the money to do that on that scale. It is a $6,700 purchase, but when we can control what goes in and out, we are less liable or less likely to get hit with one of these issues, one of these cyber issues. Not impossible. The other thing is if we get into a situation where there is a legal action taken, and I've said this before, and I can't say it strong enough, they can take your private property and download anything they want off of it to either describe what you've done as wrong, or in some cases that you have, your conduct has not been something that makes you a reliable or trustworthy person. They do that now. And you want anything that's on your home machine being introduced in court to wreck your credibility. This is a very easy step. It would work into the policy. It's forthcoming, and it's basically going to direct everybody that is using a town-owned machine, which is all of them. All the machines that we use right now belong to the town. That there can't be any personal information. There's no access to personal banking. There's no access to, your kids' pictures or whatever. Will all be pulled off, or they'll lose the ability to have a town-owned machine, and they can go buy their own. This has a lot of long-standing issues. It used to be that each department had control over the systems that they used. That is not the case anymore. And making this move will help strengthen that and keep everything within reasonable bounds. Do everything we can to keep from getting hit.
Yes.
That's my push for it. She's got the numbers.
Well, let me.
Okay, so Sherwood did some research for us. And this is a multi-tiered conversation because there's the possible acceptance of where the money would come from to pay for these machines. And also there's the issue of the extra that we need to allocate for the Europa fees. Europa does all of our computer things for us, and there is extra fees to add 5 more machines, technically 6 because of Jeremy's tablet that we're hoping to get. And then some issues depending on which machine we go with having to do with warranty and setup. So Sherwood had found MacBook Airs that are, the estimated cost of that would be for 5 machines and a protective shell and a USB-C. I took the bag off of there because I was trying to make things work. That comes in around $6,020, but there would be an extra cost of somewhere around $515. We don't have the exact price for that. That would hopefully include warranty and setup fees, but that would be $515 per device. So it could cost somewhere near $8,575 total.
Can you use
Would that
Yes.
include the 6,000?
That includes the 6,000.
can you use your selectman computer for your grant writing pieces?
I believe so.
It just depends on what's on it. I mean, if you are using it that have, children's pictures and do you really want those?
She means that if we bought a MacBook for everybody, could I also use it as grant coordinator? I
She
think that's
could,
what.
Yeah, I
No,
did.
okay.
You
I
all
misunderstood.
Could she transfer what she has on her private computer
Yeah.
over to your select board?
Yeah.
I was thinking
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I would do.
Yeah.
So the other choice, Europa gave us a price, gave Sherwood a price where they could provide 5 Lenovo laptops at $977 each with a 4-year warranty for $265 and setup fees for each for $250. That's where I got that $515 possible addition per machine for the Macs. And so we end up total cost for the Lenovo's around $7,739 if we buy the hard case for them as well, because we think that's important to get.
Wait a minute, so both of these quotes include the hard cases?
Yes, both quotes include the hard cases. It looks like with the Mac, you need to get this USB-C dongle for $25. But each of them get the protective case with them.
Yeah, those are tested for shock. It's that right there, what Connie's got on her laptop. And it's military grade. This company is really reliable in
Now,
their
this
stuff.
company, you mean who?
The company that made the shell on
produces
it.
that.
Oh, okay. I
case.
didn't know if you were
I'm
talking
not
about
sure.
Europa.
I'm not sure that the Lenovo, you can get one of those clamshell cases for, so that's where the soft case would definitely be a necessity, because you don't want them skating along the ground. The Macs would be identical to what she's got right there. Do you have the dongle attached, Connie?
Not here, but I use it every day.
Yeah, it allows to add more peripherals because these Airs only have 2 USB-C ports.
I don't even think they have them, they don't have them. Yep, the dongle is what gave me the.
That's right. Yeah, the new ones would essentially be a couple of years newer than that one right there. I mean, the Lenovo's are a good machine. The problem, yeah.
Katie, does this quote include the tablet?
No, the tablet is separate, but
Well, why don't you go ahead with that before?
okay. And then Sherwood had also found a tablet. I asked him to find a tablet for the road crew. It had been, we had been told that the iPad is the one to get because of the cellular capability, and the GPS is the most accurate. And so Sherwood found an iPad 11-inch iPad, cellular capable for $1,035.42, with an hardened case for $69.95 and a screen protector for $29.06, which total cost for the iPad for the road crew, I rounded up to $1,135. I'm hoping to cover that under the grant as well.
You're probably, as far as the tablet goes, not gonna do any cheaper than that. And the thing with the hard shell and the screen protection is it takes one drop to shatter a screen, and those screen protectors are pretty good. I mean, I had no faith in them. I went to a store one time to buy a new phone, and the guy told me I really needed the screen protector. And it's like, no, I don't. Come on, you're just upselling. No, if you break the screen, they won't cover it. All right, walked out, dropped the damn brand new phone right on the pavement, smashed the screen protector.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, So, and they replaced it because it happened so fast for free. Those are usually in the $35 a nut range. Was there a price tag on the screen protection?
Screen protector, $29.06, that
There'll
seems
probably be
fine.
3 of them in there. So, any more questions? Did you have any more questions before I start? You were stopping her for something.
Well, I'm not sure what Katie's gonna report on next, so it seems to me there's the question of this does not include like the roughly $9,000 for managing users through Europa. So then that then begs the question, what gets covered under this grant that we are pretty confident we could get? We know that it will cover the hard costs of the equipment, and it would cover some portion of the managing costs, but we don't know for how long. So I have two questions, which is, where are we getting the money for the hard equipment and for the increased cost of managing users? And then 2 is, it's not in the budget. We haven't put it in the budget, so what do we do about that? And it, could be $19,000 additional for 1 year.
I have a question.
I think, if I'm.
That we can't have budgeted monies until next July.
We haven't accounted for that.
Right.
And again, the first year may be covered by this grant, so then we would, I guess, be budgeting $9,000 to $10,000 in additional managing costs. Is
I
that
think the
plan?
difference is, I think the difference between what we're doing right this minute and this new proposal is 125 or $135.
$150 per user.
So,
I'm not sure we went over this and we got the numbers from Elaine.
Which are about $150 per
Well,
user.
You gotta add the top and the bottom.
Right, so,
And then Aaron told me on the phone it's about $150 per user, and that's the break cost, meaning it would be a little bit more, but he's giving us the break. And I think that lines up with the information that you sent from Europa. So it's about.
Well, is this a time to ask the group if Europa is our best and
I'm not
only
sure that's
choice?
the time, I'm not sure that's the conversation we're having tonight, is whether or not Europa is the best. We're talking about whether or not to go down the path, whether it's with Europa or some other company, of
Well, I just
bringing a
thought
select board on to the
because
managed.
they might be less money.
No one has done the research on it.
there is
whether-
another company locally, not one.
Okay.
And you don't know who you're dealing with these companies that are outside the area. So Aaron's business is the only one that does this deep a dive into what he provides. And when he did the original cost assessment, when we first started doing this with ARPA funds, he was able to shave some of the outside costs on that, just to make it work for us. And we started off with what do we want if there's no bottom line to it, and then we trimmed it from there. So it did go down substantially, and he has offered this as well. So.
My understanding of the numbers, it's about $150 per month per user. That's what I feel like Elaine's putting out there, that's what Aaron put out to me, and I believe that's what these documents put out to me. So $150 per user per month. And the grant is worth $20,000, so you could spend the whole $20,000, sort of, on the first year of a computer plan for the select board. but that would maybe cover 1 year, so what we would have to decide.
Well, what is in the budget? There's
There's the
12.
current users, right?
12.
It's about 12,000 we're currently paying.
Okay. So, I know we figured this out. There's 12 computers on the system right now. And 12 or 13. There's something in there about.
There's one in there that says town hall, and
We don't know what that's for.
Yeah.
I do, I figured it
Oh,
out.
you're figuring it out.
What that is basically the cost, to make everything work inside of town hall between printers, and it's basically, think of it like having another email account. That account, is how pass-through is done for those things. But there were 12 operating systems.
So what happens if you don't get the grant? Does that mean that nobody gets a computer or an iPad or anything? It's just like done?
This is a grant acceptance. The money is available
Oh,
to
it
us,
is?
and
Oh.
we just need to accept it.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
so we will get the
And,
money, it's just how we spend it.
I was
Yes,
waiting
gotcha.
to talk about it till it came up, but this is an issue of allocation. We don't wanna go too fast into accepting something that we don't know, because you have to track what you spend it on.
Mhm.
We wanna be as specific as possible about how that money is gonna be allocated, and my part in that was figuring out heavily through the VLCT what we're allowed to spend it on. So I think that
How often does that grant come up? Is it-
this is funding that
Because computer
came
technology
from the state.
moves very quickly.
This funding from the grant came from the state. It's called a local economic recovery grant. Because we had damage in the storm last year, from what I understand, and we had done claims through FEMA and things like that, it seems that the state had some funding that they wanted to hand down to not all the municipalities. I think it had to do with being affected by the July storm last year. But this money cannot be used for mitigation or storm things. It cannot overlap with your FEMA at all. It's for things to fill in some gaps, because we had to spend a lot out at that time. So you can use it for things like payroll. You can use it for a lot of the day-to-day operations that you might need, places you might need to spend money, like on technology, things like that.
Things that we ignored before because we had
Because we were
FEMA costs.
Dumping all that money into.
I'm just
the
curious
storm.
about, you're looking at 5-year warranty on it and so on.
I don't know how, the notice came out, with very little information. Actually, I had to have the VLCT talk to the agency of administration for me to even figure out. All they said was that it couldn't overlap with your FEMA. They did not say what you could actually use it for. And we had to go back into all these old news articles and really try to suss out exactly what it was for and why we were getting it, because the only reason we knew we could get it is because there was an allocation chart that with us on it. And what I noticed we had in common with the other towns on it was that they were also affected by the flood. And they had pointed out that you could not use it for mitigation or floods things or overlap with your FEMA. So it's very confusing. There was no due date to accept it, and there was no expiration date of how long you could use the money, how long this money could last for you. You get this $20,000, well, when do I have to spend it by? There's no information about that yet.
My guess is that it's state leftover ARPA funds.
It seems like it.
Yeah, and they just, because that's pretty much what the government did to us before with our ARPA funding was, here you go, and then we'll tell you as we go what you can use it for. When it started out, we couldn't use it for anything but recovery from COVID. Well, I mean, COVID in its, the way that it happened here, although we had patients, how are you gonna spend $600,000 on the maybe handful of people that it might have impacted the town? And then as they went on, they opened it up and opened it up. My guess is that this is state leftover ARPA funds. They have until 2026 to spend it, or they have to turn it back in. Have to have projects by the end of this year, and it has to be spent by 2026. Now, the state will have different rules, but this is the way to try and move us forward. And I think honestly, the computers that are listed here that are the Lenovo's are plastic-based. The computers that are from Apple are aluminum-based. I have an Apple computer at home that's a 2010, runs just as well as it did the day I opened the box. They just don't seem to fall apart. You drop them or you drown them, yeah, you're gonna have the same problem you did with the plastic one.
No, the only thing that's really changed, does change and changes pretty quickly, is how much data it can work with. You know, how much can it store, how much can, you're looking at 512 gig store on those Lenovo.
Same thing on the Mac.
That's not much.
No,
Well,
but
I would assume that the select board is not gonna be requiring a ton of data.
Well, that's why
The
I'm
work that we
trying to
do.
get to the point of, do we have a cloud service that,
yes, that's where we're working right now.
so then that's where the bulk of your information is sitting.
Go ahead.
So I got, today I got a couple questions from Alenka and Kurt, which is, what is really the risk? Like, we're talking not an insignificant amount of money, although we do know a chunk of it would probably be paid for by the allocation, but that we're committing to, not an insignificant amount of money for managing in the future. And I really couldn't answer what our risk was. I just want to make sure I understand. What I'm hearing our risk is, it's fishing expeditions. Although, how much somebody is on their private computer and has a fishing expedition, I guess that could make its way back to the municipality. And the other significant risk would be lawsuits, because when you have a lawsuit, right, they can depose all the machines that are related in some way to that lawsuit. I guess those are the two most significant risks?
Well, those are the two that I talked about. As far as the phishing goes, if you bring a personal computer into our network and sign on to it, everything that's in that computer is now exposing the all of the systems that are in there, the ones that are on, the ones that are
But nobody really
off.
has access currently to that network except managed users.
Well, but
Because we had this whole conversation, Ally has a laptop, or we were gonna try to use one of the extra laptops, but Aaron was really firm, once you let something on the network, it has to be managed.
Yes.
So we didn't use any of that stuff. That's how this whole conversation came up.
how does it work if you go into town hall and you're using your
You're on a guest,
phone?
you're on a guest.
Phones are less likely, but not impossible.
Well, you're
It's the
also
amount
on a
of-
guest
Yes,
service, you're not on the network, you're
yeah,
on a
you're not
guest.
into the network that allows you access to the printers.
Right,
It allows you to the printers, and the printers can send it through to other computers on the system. It is a situation that these guys come up with new ways to be a pain every single day. There was one that I read about this morning, where a hospital system was attacked, and that will cost them millions of dollars to recover from.
so,
So tying up our loose ends that we've dealt with for a long time would be the goal here.
so right now, the select board, their emails are managed. We do have that.
.gov, yeah.
So there is a certain level of security that we were able to achieve by going to the .gov and having Europa manage the emails. So then the question was, okay, well, if someone's at home doing emails on behalf of the town, like Nick or Ally or Katie, if the email is secure, then what's the risk? And I couldn't really answer that question.
Because there's no way that you can 100% guarantee that you're not at risk.
Well,
You have multiple layers.
Right.
The government has multiple layers. It comes from the federal government, .gov. And then you have the layers that we have put in place for the town through Europa. But that doesn't, in this
And
neighborhood,
even, my question then is, then I'll let Nick
Yeah.
speak, but even if I have a secure email that is being managed by Europa, if it's on my personal computer and we have a lawsuit, they can still get my computer, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want
Right,
people
that's-
using their own machines or anything to do with business.
Right.
It's one of the reasons why. And these, like I said, these people, that's all they do all day long, is sit there and try and get in. And once they get one, it'll pass it to everyone that signs onto that network. So this,
So how
I
are
will
we
be
gonna go?
honest with you.
Okay.
I'll be honest
see it.
with you. This is not 100% foolproof, but it's one tick in the armor that we need, being a municipality. I honestly don't want to get a bill for 200 million or 100 million or 200 million dollars because we sent it to some jackass in Russia or Korea or China or whatever, with the potential that we're never going to recover it. And then what do we do? You know, the first questions from the insurance company are going to be, what have you done? Not enough right now. Now you for
Nick,
Very short. I just think there's also a risk when you're using your personal devices to access, is like how you access and how you're saving passwords and all those things where maybe you're not tying into the phishing in the email, but you have all your passwords saved in something and then they can access that through
It
some
puts the
other
individual
thing.
at risk too.
Right.
Yeah.
once
Gotcha.
once an individual gets hit, they can knowingly or unknowingly spread that throughout the entire managed network. And I mean, the Fed .gov is not beyond being breached either. You need the FBI in the last 6 months, the military, they're just everywhere.
Well, and what Nick was saying is that is also a risk to the individual select board member.
Mhm.
Because if they can get through anything, they're gonna get into your personal information, which is a risk factor for you.
So I want to go back to the Europa. When I was comparing the quote Sherwood just got and what Elaine provided us, these costs where it says managed service platinum, managed security services, and then the 365, which all end us up at this last price. On Sherwood's version, it's $1,673.40. And on Elaine's, I did the math, it's $1,483. It is my understanding when I look at what Elaine has here and what is labeled on this breakdown from Europa for Sherwood, managed services, MSP services, $75, quantity 11, that's $825. Under the plan that Elaine had given us, we're currently paying $450. That's a difference of, 300.
375.
Yeah. And then, so then you move on to managed security services. They're quoting us on this one at $550. The one Elaine has is $750. And then when you look at Microsoft 365, that's $22 a device for 11 devices. On the newest quote, $242. And on Elaine's quote for 12 users, that's $283. That means that for the year, currently, we're paying $17,796 for these services for the current devices that we have. And it's my understanding through reading this contract or this quote from Europa right here, that we would only be going up to $19,404 for the year. Based on the numbers that I'm seeing in front of me and comparing them to what Elaine has.
Well, again,
Because it
what I-
says recurring 75, quantity 11, and gives you that price.
What I did is I took 75 plus 50 plus 22, which gets you to about 150 per user.
Mhm.
And so if we have, what did I do with them? If we take the people in town hall, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 currently, and then you add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that's 12.
Well,
And if you-
6 because of Jeremy, so
When
does he need a program for
No,
his-
he's already managed, so he's on there. He's on that.
even though he has 2 devices now?
No, he doesn't have 2, he has 1. I'm talking about currently.
Okay.
So currently we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? That includes Jeremy, at 150 per month. And then you add on, and I didn't even add the tablet, but you add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 select board plus a tablet.
That's what I was trying to say.
If you add that on, I'm just doing literally $150 a month per user, and then times that by 4, times that by 12 for a year. That's how I got the numbers on this, but it doesn't include the tablet.
Right. What I was seeing was they were giving these recurring prices, and I was comparing them to our current recurring prices. And seeing
different.
what we pay now and what, according to this quote, says that we would pay. And it seems to be, for some reason, I don't know if I'm reading this completely wrong, but it seems to me that by adding 5 users for the year, we're going up from $17,796 to $19,404, which is not a difference of
A lot.
I
$9,000.
would like to, I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay.
And again, it's.
And I'm telling you that I could be reading this completely
Right, and I could
wrong,
be too.
but I'm taking her saying Office 365 domain, Office 365
No,
down
no, I
here.
understand how you got it. I'm just saying, when I talked to Aaron, he said $150 per user per month. Right? So, and again, I could be incorrect on that, but that's where I came up with. If you times it just by what you want, I think that currently, and I remember us roughly in the $12,000 range when we, right, Sherwood, when we
Are you
first
real?
entered into this contract with Europa. And so then if you just add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I only added 5, you're looking at close to $10,000 more dollars.
And it's confusing because,
Can I say something? Would you be willing to kind of make some columns of what you're saying and call Europa?
yeah,
And say, this is what I'm seeing, can you get to the bottom of this for us?
yeah, I can do that. Because I've been looking at these numbers for the past 2 days, comparing them across each other. And I'm thinking, I'm not understanding where these huge hikes are coming from, because it's looking to me,
Well, but Katie, if you just take an additional six users, right, 6 times 150 times 12, it's $10,800.
right,
Right, but she's disagreeing with that method because of what they've written here.
Well, I'm just saying, if Aaron said it was if it was $150 a month per user, which is what Aaron said, and what I believe corresponds, which is, I could be wrong. I just don't know how you add on 6 users,
For
which is
$2,000.
almost what we have now for $2,000.
well, here's an example that MSP Platinum, currently we have 6 users, and we pay $750 for that service. He has us over here with 11 users, that's 5 more than 6, for $550. So we came down in
So-
price, it looks like, on that. Now, when I look at the end of this quote that he gave Sherwood, it says MSP services, managed security services, Microsoft 365, $825 MSP services. Over here, MSP services, say recurring, $75, quantity 11, $825. Those two things right there. Then we have managed security services, quantity 11, $550. Then we have Microsoft 365, quantity 11, $242. When I look at what Elaine said, we have managed services current, $450, managed security current, $750, and 365 current, $283. So you get a total of $1,483 on Elaine's side and a total of $1,672 on the new side. On Elaine's current, we pay $17,796 for these services for the machines that we currently have, and on this quote, we would pay $19,404 for 5 more.
So
That's what I
you'll do
understand
a
on this paperwork. I will clarify this
You'll
with
do a
Aaron.
spreadsheet how you understand it,
Yes.
and then get yays or nays from him.
I will do that.
Well, I mean, it would be easy enough just to ask him what the additional cost is.
Yeah, and so when I was writing the allocation that we're gonna get to in a little bit, I put the difference between this 17 and 19, because as many times over that I read this, that's how much money we need to come up with in order to host these 5 more machines. And that seems pretty manageable to me. It's about like 2,000
Which I just,
something dollars.
actually, that would be very pleasantly surprised.
That would be very pleasant, because I was afraid of this other $100 and something dollars. But I looked at this a million times. Oh, well, she did give me documentation.
Okay,
There is Europa and her notes.
okay,
But
good.
but it's not NEMRIC, she gave you a NEMRIC.
She gave me Nemrick and I didn't print it out.
Right, well, when I print, so we were clear that it's not including NEMRIC,
It does
right?
not have
Okay.
Nemrick on here. It's a little,
Okay, so
Yeah.
you'll report to us the next select meeting.
Well, is there a time you want, is there a due date?
well, we want to, that's why, I don't wanna skip too far ahead, because we haven't decided to accept this, right? And I haven't gone into like everything about it. But if we're going to accept this money, we should know what we're gonna use it for. I don't know how long we wanna draw out that process of, I do think it is a larger discussion, the allocation, but I do not wanna draw it out too long to where any of it gets lost in the winds, because we need to be documenting this money. So I do think that it's possible, because we could, the possibility of if the board decides to accept this money, they pay it out in, I wanna say 5 days. That kind of puts us in between select board meetings, and then we have a select board meeting. So I'm comfortable with us talking about my allocation that I've created and kind of making some decisions, and then doing a final vote at the next select board meeting, if when people hear about it, they're interested in that as well.
Well, there's one other option. Vote tonight to accept the money. If we can't find a usage for it, which I find hard to believe, then we just send it back. I mean, there's nothing wrong with sending it back if we can't use it.
Oh, we can definitely use it.
So,
I found a laundry list of things we could use it for.
So why don't we just accept it without that last sentence in there?
And when you accept it, do you have to say what you're accepting it for, do you think?
You have to document what you're using it for. They have not said you need to submit that documentation, but they said document it.
But I think what we're talking about is that we could vote to give you permission to go ahead and finalize it, what we're using it for at the
You
next
can't
meeting.
finalize it. You can
I
vote
can't
decide.
make a financial decision without everybody, but that's why I made these recommendations. And then I think maybe we could use this meeting to introduce them and next meeting to accept them. And then
Okay.
after that, then the money gets allocated in all of the that's kind of like what I think.
And you haven't been given a deadline to accept funds.
So actually, that was interesting. I was a little bit frantic about this because it was such a strange email. And I was saying to Katie Buckley from the VLCT, hey, we just had a select board meeting. I didn't have enough information to talk about this. so we can't accept it right now. I have to wait. And it was one of those, end of July to this date was
Right.
almost 3
3
weeks or
weeks.
so. And she brought my question back to them, to the grant, to the economic grant people, and I believe the Agency of Administration, and she said to them, you're dealing with select boards, and their meetings are twice a month. And there's no deadlines here, you have to understand that, because they were saying, oh, not a lot of towns had accepted this money yet, and she's like, this is why.
Yeah.
Please, take note of this in your end of things, that, you have to wait for select board meetings, and they were happy to get that feedback, because it seems like this was sort of a quick rollout. You can't quote me on that, but it seems like it was
Yeah.
possible that this was a quicker rollout than,
To meet the 2024 deadline.
it seemed like it was
Right.
right before fiscal year,
Right.
the current fiscal year, so,
So I still see no reason why we can't accept it now.
yes.
And deal with it afterwards, as long as we document it. And if we don't use it, and they tell us we have to turn it back in, what's the
And
harm?
my question is, when we accept it, where is it going that we can then allocate from there?
It'd have to go into its own line item,
That's what I was hoping was gonna happen, so that,
because you want to be able to document
Right.
every expenditure out of that line item.
Right.
right,
If it just goes into general funds,
It's lost.
technically it's going to be in the general fund,
mhm,
because there's no reserve account. But as long as it's got its own line item, she can stick it anywhere and still draw on that line.
yeah.
And are you gonna bring it up to the $20,000? To the maximum amount? I see 17
Okay,
here.
and so what I did, if you wanna look at, now that I've explained the grant itself, if you look at the papers that I gave you, I gave some different scenarios for accepting and allocating this money. None of them are set in stone, they were just scenarios I was coming up with that seemed like I wanted to touch on current projects, things we have going on right now, and say, hey, we're getting this money and we're getting it in 5 days, and this stuff is all on the tip of our tongues, let's start ticking things off the list. So without judgment, these are a lot of those things that I could identify. One of the pieces of feedback I did get from Katie Buckley from the VLCT, her first example, because I kept saying to her, what can we use it for? I only know what we can't use it for. And she said, you could use it for wages. And that got me thinking about my grant position. And early on in my grant education, one of the first things another grant person had told me was try to find a grant to pay your wages. And this kind of just fell in my lap as a way, if the board decided, and this is a future meeting, but if the board had decided to extend my position 6 more months, it might make sense to them to cover those wages ahead of time, so that we're not taking the blind hit to a budget that we had written before the position was created. So that was something on the list to consider. In addition to that, we just did pre-applications for 7, which could be 9, hazard mitigation grants that are going to have hefty applications coming in January that have a lot of information that's gonna have to be hashed out. And that's a lot of, if they approved even 5 of them, that would be a lot of information. So there was talk about the possibility of increasing my grant hours by 5 hours a week, which is in one of the scenarios on allocation number 2. But let me just go through this is where, so you can see my thought process. On allocation 1, I put in the MacBooks, but I did not put in I did put Lenovo's in the second allocation. I didn't put the total cost of the warranty in the setup because we don't know it yet. I put that in the end as a possibility to be covered under the grant money, but we don't know that cost. I put the iPad for the road crew in here, which I think is a no-brainer. We've needed it for a while, and we're getting these funds, we can use it for that. I put my grant coordinator wages as they are right now. And I put in some money for the fountain and common projects. We know that we wanted to have a solar pump. We know that we need some electrical work and some plumbing. And the reason that these things are listed here is because when I initially said that I wanted to apply for this grant for the fountain, there was discussion that what if we want to use it now? How would we be able to do that? We don't want to wait a year for grant money to come in. We might want to use it now. And these things on here are the things we need to do to use it now. So that brought us to the $17,496,
Does that
yes.
include the cost of managing the computers? Or is this just the hard?
This is
equipment?
just the equipment.
Okay.
And then when you go to the options for the remaining $2,500, you'll see number 1 is Europa increase, which is, obviously we want me to ask them more questions, but this is around the number that I was trying to figure out as what our town increase for the year would be. Then number 2 as a possibility, we could, instead of doing number 1, we could do number 2, which is possibly come up with this cost that I'm not totally sure what it is for warranty and setup fees for the MacBooks. Other than that, if we didn't want to do any of those things with this remaining money, we could tick other things off the list. We don't know the cost for the fire alarms yet because it's been hard to get an estimate, but once we get that estimate, maybe $2,500 would put a dent in that. Or the upstairs window repair, or the slate roof, or the increase in grant hours if we need it this January when all those applications come at us. On the second option, the second allocation I came up with, and these are just scenarios, I put the Lenovo laptops, which have that warranty and setup fee built into them. I put the iPad for the road crew. I put the wages for the grant coordinator. I put a little bit less money towards the fountain common projects. I'm hoping that anything that was left over from any money put towards the fountain or the common goes back into this maintenance plan we're trying to build in, if possible. And then on the options for the remaining $2,285 from my estimates over here, we have our Europa increase, or fire alarms for town hall, or window repair, or slate roof, or increase in grant coordinator hours. These are all possibilities. These are all things on our current to-do list. And so I do think this kind of needs to be hashed out further and put into a more cohesive document. But I was, as you know, pulling my hair out over this Europa for the past couple days and trying to make sense of these numbers, trying to use this money meaningfully, or allocate this money meaningfully to things that we have come before us and that seem to be all important items on the list. So that's where I was coming from.
Okay.
That was a lot.
I don't sleep now.
Yeah. I should
With 4
tell.
kids, I don't imagine. I guess I would make a motion to direct Katie to accept the funds as soon as possible.
As part of discussion, I want to say that in the language of the email that we received from the state, it said that a person authorized to accept grants or funds on behalf of the town is the person who should fill out the online doc. So that might be Ally.
Yeah, you'd be safe doing it that way.
Yeah.
All right, I'll amend my motion to direct Ally to accept these funds and sign whatever documentation necessary.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Okay.
I think I'm supposed to.
Okay, where are we now?
Should we have anything about hashing out the allocations ahead of the next meeting? Do we need a motion for that, or can you just say that we can put it on the agenda?
Just put it on the agenda.
So Grace Cottage Hospital mowing, I mentioned above, so I feel we're done with that unless anybody has any further questions. The application for the grants, we talked about the old grader, and now we're on to new business. I put sidewalk discussions on the agenda because our sidewalks are in very poor shape. And the problem that we had with trying to find a sidewalk company that would be willing to work in a hostile environment has passed. And so possibly it's the time that we start looking at this. I tried to find in Town Hall who we used last time and how much it cost, and I have not been successful yet. So if any of you have any prior knowledge, let us know. And then, but I think it's time to start thinking about it. Do you have anything to say about that, Jeremy?
No, I know that there's quite, most of the sidewalks are in very bad shape and probably do not meet code at this point. So,
There is some money left over in a reserve account for sidewalks.
There
Yep,
is.
6,851.
There you go.
probably get us about 30 feet.
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't, we don't
I
have
can
to
make
do
a
the
few
whole
phone
thing
calls
at
and get some
once.
ballpark estimates on roughly how much,
My suggestion would be, as far as the money that's in the reserve account, don't spend it all, so the account stays open, and ask town meeting to replenish some of it, so we can do the next section of it when necessary.
Are there, does the state have any obligation for sidewalks along a state highway?
Nope,
No, I didn't think so, but I figured it was worth an ask.
I tried twisting that, and I got told that it's your problem, not ours. Rather rudely, actually.
Okay.
Isn't there something about the edges of the common growing over the curb?
Yeah, I talked to Jeremy about replenishing the shoulders
Yeah.
on the common. And, because it's a pretty precipitous drop from the road to the
Yeah.
grass.
With the common and what there's left in whatever fund, you still may want to take into account putting some kind of barrier between the road and that brand new structure, whether it be granite, whether it be concrete's not a great idea.
Well, I can talk to Brian when he's done with the bridge project, if they have any of the big granite boulders left over.
I just think that that thing has been plugged a couple of times, and the last time it was pretty serious under there. So,
Boulders would be cool. That would look really
Yeah.
good.
Big granite boulders along Route 30.
keep them from running into
That's a
it.
great idea.
Because they hit that one.
Yeah, it's
where they
more
hit
for
the
us to
last
mow
time,
around,
it will
but-
not survive.
Probably even more.
Yep.
Okay,
I
so,
mean, we have plenty of boulders down in the pit too, it's just a matter of getting them up there and placing them.
and the new business for the cybersecurity, I think we've covered. We're on to trash attendant job, Katie, and you, I need a couple of notes right
Oh,
here,
good.
if you can read them.
It's a discussion.
It's a discussion, everybody has it. If you want to look at this one, guys, you
They have
can.
it in your packet.
I've got the, yeah, I've got it
Okay.
right here.
Okay.
Under responsibilities.
So we wanted to really spell out what the attendant responsibilities are. When we had spoken to an employee about what as it had been described to them, it was a very casual conversation at that point of hire for them, and I think that it's better if we have it really spelled out and we have it be something that everybody's on the same page about.
And that it's in writing and maybe even he signs it because
Yeah,
he could have been told but forgot.
and and our foreman has changed over, so
Right.
some of our employees were hired by someone else, and so I think that as we've been refining these job responsibilities, this way there is no confusion. So
We need some written job descriptions.
definitely.
Keep us out of it.
And also because,
Right.
sometimes our current attendant has people that sub for him, like Laura, and some other people, and to have this posted, there's no question about it.
Right.
This is what everybody knows. And there's a few things in here, I said, don't get there more than a half hour early, we just can't have our employees off the clock hanging out there really early It just doesn't make any sense. Staying open for the entirety of the hours posted, that's
Mandatory.
greeting residents, requesting to view the residents' hang tag upon their arrival. There has been a lot of people going into the town hall to request hang tags, so I think that's been effective, that's been happening, and it's getting people to actually have them and hang them, so we know that our trash is from our residents.
And I added to make a list of the people that didn't have hang tags, so that maybe if they're from Jamaica, then we could call them and say, this is for residents only, you know.
We want to have our attendant, to the best of their ability, pay attention to what people are putting into the trash and the recycle and the compost receptacles. I know there's a certain order in which each receptacle is used, and just keeping that as part of the job description to use them in the correct order. And I know that there was some info that, you know, sometimes people go and cut the tags off of there, and we don't want that to happen, so that's the, you know, the attendant can tell them not to do that. Maintaining a clean area around the receptacles, maintaining a clean attendant shack is really important. It's not always just one attendant there, sometimes there's other attendants that fill in for them. And also, you know, appropriate use of that attendant shack, which I think has been an issue in the past. Let's see, make sure that the snow is removed from around the receptacles when necessary within the ability of the attendant. I think that's important.
Also, maybe you want to add, make sure they sand when it's icy. I mean, I know that you shouldn't have to write that down, but there
Is that
have
the
been
attendant's
times when,
responsibility to sand it? Is that?
I don't know who's,
Sand
the
it.
whole area. I don't know
You'll
whose
do it, right?
responsibility
I
it is.
thought that would be you. Okay. Handing out.
If we have, you know, if we have time before, you know, because some days we're out plowing when it's snowing and we're not around to do it, so
Right.
So then who does it defer to?
the attendant should do
If
it.
someone falls,
Eddie? Yeah, you know, right.
Make sure it's sanded.
because it's been sketchy there a few times.
Well, a lot of that is the weather pattern too.
Yeah,
Like, we're getting all these snowstorms and immediately followed by rain.
Yeah.
but that doesn't change. the
At that
fact somebody
time,
can fall
we go home
first.
and get some rest. And we come back in the morning and it's frozen solid and there's not much we can do with it,
Well, if
so.
our attendant is paying attention to it, then they can let you know.
But if they're not there
Yeah, they're
when
only
those
there.
snowstorms are happening,
That's true.
then we're dealing with, you know, an icy mess.
Yeah.
He should be able to take a little.
Can we just
can
pave the
of
whole
salt.
parking lot and be done with it?
It would still get icy.
Be easier to take care of though.
Maybe you should.
Because the town is, we're all about making things easier at the cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
The paving though is not within the scope of the
Um,
project,
No.
which is what we're discussing.
We would like the attendant to hand out compost bags, operate the compactor when necessary. Answer questions related to the dump to the best of your ability.
I thought scratch that one was my opinion.
Well,
He's got so many highfalutin ideas. We're gonna fence it all in and we're gonna,
So,
Yep.
I just think it's leading him down a path that maybe he
okay.
shouldn't
Into
go.
conversations that-
We
Yeah.
were told that there's a lot of questions that come to the attendant and what to do with that. We said delegate those questions
Right.
to the road foreman or the town hall, and it'll get to the select board and we can answer those questions. Day-to-day stuff, like which receptacle does this go in?
Yeah,
That's where my mindset
that's what I was
is.
thinking
But
too.
anything more complicated than which receptacle does this go in, we really want those questions delegated. So we can reword that, but I
Okay.
do think that,
Mhm.
He should be asking his supervisor and the highway foreman, those questions. And if Jeremy can answer them,
right,
he can choose to bring them up here or not.
that's what we were thinking.
Most of the things he has been putting up chain link fence to direct people around. I was there last week and he had this damn sawhorse barricade. And I said to him, Eddie, did Jeremy tell you you could do this? He says, well, I think he knows. I said, take it down. you're gonna cause more problems and we don't need any more problems. Take it down, and he took it down. But it was part of his chain link plan. And honestly, it's not a bad idea, but you get people coming in and out of there in clumps, you know? So somebody's sitting there waiting for the next person to go through instead of just pulling off to the side. And yeah, it's a mess, but he needs to ask his supervisor first.
Right, and I have on here to forward any other questions to the road foreman, who will then forward things to town hall if necessary. Also, in a small comment to what you were just talking about, I also foresaw that these responsibilities being more ironed out once we finalize a document about them. There is an element of retraining that's gonna happen. And I think that's really important for anyone. Now that we have created a new list, retraining, we're all on the same page, here it is. Look at the document. If it is not in your job description, don't do it. If you need to ask a question, sorry, Jeremy, but contact Jeremy, because Jeremy is the one that can answer the question that the attendant would not have an answer for, and that really the only question that the attendant should be asked is, which receptacle does this go in? Where should I pull up to? That kind of thing. And that brings me to refuse all tasks outside of your job description. I am sorry, but we're not going to be helping people take their garbage out of their car. We can't. Sometimes people don't have, it's hard for people, and I feel bad about this, but at the same time, I think it protects everybody if we don't have help with our trash from the attendant. And a way that we thought to deal with that, because we don't want to be cold about it. It sounds terrible, like we won't help you, but we need to have some sort of posted sign that states that the attendant isn't available for that. We don't want anyone getting hurt. We don't want anyone, being upset that something got thrown away out of their car or something that they didn't mean for the attendant to remove. Just there's a lot of things that could go wrong with that scenario. And I think if we're ironing out really clear responsibilities, we need to post that that's just not something that we can do anymore or going forward.
2 comments. One, you should add on there that whoever's doing the compactor, the traffic vests are there for a reason, and they need to be wearing them. I can just see somebody, I saw Eddie nearly get nailed 3 times in the same 20 minutes or 10 minutes that I was there. And it just adds some safety.
It's when they leave the shack, right?
Yeah,
They should
they're
just wear it as their uniform.
Well, they're supposed to put it on.
Yeah, I would just say, PPE should be worn at all times. Yeah, at one point I'd ask for uniforms. Sure, you want shirts and pants.
The other comment is in the past, and I know we're not the past, but in the past, the person that was manning that shack that was criticized for not helping seniors. Unfortunately, the guy that was doing it was quite a senior himself, but not helping seniors with their trash. So that's something that's out there in the community, and there might be pushback on it. So we just need to answer it.
It's a hard conversation to have, but how do you ask somebody that's, in this scenario that you're saying, elderly themselves, if this past attendant, how are we asking them to do something?
Well, how'd they get it in there in the first place?
What do you mean, in
Why
the
don't they
garbage
bring
pail?
whoever helped them put it in the car with them?
Let's put it this way. It was such an issue that it was part of every select board meeting about the person who was there doing the job. Just pushing at it and pushing at it and pushing at it, that he needs to get out there and be seen, and it's like, okay, just there might be some rattling about that.
I expected it, and it is a hard conversation to have, because
Well, we live in a town where everybody wants to help everybody, but when you have a senior citizen, partially disabled attendant, we have to be fair to him too.
Well, and we also just talked about how it's often snowy, it's often icy, it's often muddy, and we have to think about our employee and the risk that our employee, that we're expecting of our employee. Because I wouldn't want to require, because see, this is the black and white of
Right.
having a really clear job description. I don't want to require that my employee
Be an assistant as well.
has to assist everybody. So I would rather,
And we can't make any, like, assumptions that what people are throwing away don't have glass, don't have needles, don't have anything that you
Right.
could get stuck with as you're trying to help someone else out.
and it is nice to help people, and I like advocate for that all the time, but I also think that we just have to, it has to be one or the other. And I think it's the safest to have it where we just supposed to sign, I'm sorry that this is not.
Is there any way we could maybe, I know that's probably pushing it, but maybe have some kind of wagon or something that people could put their stuff in and bring it to the, or would that be another liability
That's a good
issue,
idea.
or, I mean, like
We
a
should
shopping
just get rid
cart?
of the trash altogether, and then people would have to deal with it on their
Yeah.
own. I mean, there's that aspect to it.
Yeah.
You know, they can either be grateful for what they have, or not.
Well, they can get mad at me and I'll defend it,
Right.
because I think it's
And we
the most
could call
reasonable thing.
VLCT and find out if there's any like legalese jargon that we could make a little sign that says the attendant is not allowed to.
I'd start with.
I kinda like your idea,
solid
let's just
waste
not
and
have
solid
it.
It's a money suck.
Everybody takes care of their own trash.
It's a money suck.
I like that. But
I'll present next selectmen's meeting about trash money. We'll talk trash, guys.
One thing I did want to raise was that, this, like a finished version of this document is sort of like, it was requested of us and we need to provide it like sooner than later.
Yeah.
I don't wanna say too much, but, so.
Right. Well, and I think it should be finalized, and if you wanna give it to Connie, she can finalize it.
Okay, I didn't know if it
And
was
then-
something we need to vote on.
So
And
if
if you're
you, I
moving
can
to
type up
policy.
what the additions are, the modifications are, as far as I know it, I can send it out for informational purposes to the select board, who can individually respond to me. And if there's a substantive change, I can let people know, but I bet you there isn't, and we can do up a form. I do think that the employee who is reviewing this and agreeing that they understand it needs to sign it.
Yes.
And so does the supervisor.
So it needs to be in policy form, so it carries past this group right here.
So we'd be able to finalize next meeting then, with formal vote, or?
I feel like we've already voted, but not, well, we haven't voted, but I feel like we've discussed it and people are in general agreement on what Katie has put together with a few modifications that are not really, that if
That
I
aren't
add them,
substantive.
Yeah.
so you could
So we could make a
kind of
motion,
vote on it tonight.
yeah. I'd go for that and just get it done.
So a motion could be to accept the policy with the amendments.
And instruct you to type it up for signatures.
Fine with
That works. Second.
Well, who made that motion?
Well, I
Did
guess
you?
you and I did.
that.
All right, I'll make the motion. Now I'll give it to you.
Okay, I make a motion that we
I just
accept.
We need a
You
second.
just said
Yeah, but I
make a
don't
motion.
know exactly what
I'll
the
second
motion
it.
is.
You just said it.
So what's the motion? What are the amendments, right? What are the changes that
Basically
need to
what
be in
Connie
there?
just said.
But Connie didn't spell out what the changes were to
The
this, to
changes
what's written.
that I see, if we're all looking at the document, I see that
The
all
PBD,
of these bullet points remain, nothing has been deleted,
Mhm.
that we add to make sure snow is removed from around receptacles when necessary and sand the area if needed.
And
right?
request view residents hang tag and keep a list of people
I have
who have
that as
done
a-
That could be as simple as writing down their license plate number.
Mhm.
I think.
Okay, so I put it on that bullet, because I said make a list of people who do not have name tags. I can go under the request.
And then Nick, we talked about
Wait, hold on one second, and then we have, answer questions related to the dump to the best of the ability. Simple questions
Yep.
they can handle. Bigger questions they forward to the foreman and or town hall. Wear a traffic vest or PPE should be worn at all times. And then that's what I have.
What about the helping people with their trash?
It's already
That one
here.
we have
Oh,
to
it's
do.
already there?
Not.
It's
Refusing.
refuse all tasks outside of your job description.
Oh,
So if it's not in this job description, don't do it.
And we, as a select board, talked about posting the sign, but that wouldn't be in this thing.
Right, and
and areas,
Any amendments? I
no.
think that's what,
And then areas for signature of foreman and staff.
would be, if everybody agrees, there would, I think Ally's saying, just in terms of what it would look like, right? That there would be, I have read and understand, employee signature, witnessed would be, hopefully the supervisor, if not maybe a select board member.
As far as
I
reading
can read
that,
it.
once it's signed off on it, needs to come back and be put in his personnel or their
Yep.
personnel file.
We've been being very good with any little,
So would the
Pieces.
motion tonight be then to accept or to adopt the attendant responsibilities with the modifications?
So
Is
moved.
that the,
Seconded.
okay. And Suarez. So you need to vote on
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
that? Alan, you voted?
No, I didn't vote.
You didn't vote on that?
No.
So you're abstaining?
Well, I never vote usually, but,
Oh, I haven't voted on
oh,
that.
okay, well, we can talk about it.
Well,
I usually just try to save my votes for tie vote.
We wouldn't have
I
any.
know, we wouldn't have a tie vote tonight.
Well, I also think on a couple of votes, we wouldn't have a quorum if you don't vote.
All right, so then I
On the
vote, I
one where Katie
agree.
abstained, we wouldn't, but at the others, we've been fine.
Right.
Okay, so,
I just wanna talk about the retraining piece. Is that something that maybe I can quickly meet with Jeremy about and we can put in a plan in place for if this document is gonna be provided to the employee, that retraining gets scheduled ASAP?
right, and if we have substitutes, we should probably get a form for them and a training for them as well.
Right, so, I just wanted to put that out
So I hear
there.
that Katie's suggesting that she and Jeremy schedule a retraining as soon as possible after the signing of the document, and she's looking for approval from the board.
Is that fine with everybody? Is that fine with you, Jeremy? Do you have time for that?
Sure.
Okay, it'll be quick.
And is that fine with the rest of the board? Okay.
Does anybody have anything else we have to
I
sign?
do,
Yeah,
before you all shut down. I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm going to step down as the keeper of the common. I don't know if I have to submit it in writing or whatever, but I'm sure everybody knows already. But I just don't feel that I have the resources to
you're still
do
gonna
that
be on the
justice.
common committee,
I
but
am going to
not
be on the common
keeper
committee,
of the common.
just not a keeper of the common.
Okay,
Yes, you should.
Just to make
write
it
down.
official. Should write it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody that's in one of those positions that's appointed, in order to relieve themselves of that position, has to have a written resignation.
We'll do that.
well, thank you for your couple of weeks of service.
It really doesn't, the requirements are a bit much, or whatever. I think it can be more than I can do.
Okay, but I'll see you tomorrow night at
You will
the
see me tomorrow.
meeting.
So are you guys done?
We're
Are
done,
you
we have
adjourning?
warrants to sign and we have an executive session to go into. So, I thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session.
Seconded?
All those in favor, that we need to vote vote yes?
Aye.
They are,
I think it's because of
okay.
Lancaster.
No,